Hello students, this is Vaishali, a faculty in School of Finance and Commerce, Galgodias University. I welcome you all to this lecture series. The name of the topic is Public Sector Enterprises. So let's get started with the presentation. So students, you would have come across different types of business organizations in your day-to-day life. For example, in your neighborhood, there are shops which are owned by individuals who are known as sole proprietors. Similarly, there are big retail organizations which are run by a company. Same way, there are people who provide you consultancy services or legal services which are run by more than one person, and this is known as partnership firm. These all are privately owned organizations. Now similarly, there are other places of business which are owned by government. One of the best examples is railways. Now railways is an organization which is wholly owned and managed by the government. Similarly, post office is managed and owned by Post and Telegraph Department, Government of India. So basically there are two sectors in an economy, private sector and public sector. So private sector consists of business which is owned by individuals or a group of individuals. Just like we saw in the previous slide, sole proprietorship, partnership and company form of organization come under private sector. Similarly, the public sector consists of various organizations which are owned and managed by the government. These organizations are either wholly or partly owned by central or state government. Now, since Indian economy consists of both privately owned and government owned businesses, it is known as a mixed economy. So public sector can further be classified into departmental undertaking, statutory corporation and government company. Let's look at these forms of organizations in detail in further discussion. Let's start with departmental undertakings. Now departmental undertakings are the oldest and the most traditional form of organizing public enterprises. We all know that a government has different ministries. So these enterprises are established as departments of the ministry or are considered as an extension of the ministry itself. Any government functions through these departments, and the activities performed by them are an integral part of the functioning of the government. So one thing has to be kept in mind, these departmental undertakings are not an autonomous or independent institutions. They act through the offices of the government and its employees are known as government employees. These undertakings may be under the central or the state government, and the rules of the central and state government are applicable to it. Railways and Post and Telegraph Department are examples of a departmental undertaking. Let's discuss the features of a departmental undertaking. First is funding. The funding of these enterprises come directly from the government treasury. A portion of the budget is allocated and the revenue earned by these is also paid back into the treasury. Second is the status of the accounting and auditing control. A departmental undertaking is subject to accounting and auditing controls as applicable to other government bodies and activities. Third, employees. The employees of the enterprise are government servants, and their recruitment and conditions of service are the same as that of other employees who are directly under the government. So the employees are headed by Indian Administrative Service officers and civil servants who are transferable from one ministry to another. A departmental undertaking is generally considered to be a major subdivision of the government department and is subject to direct control of the ministry. Now, these departmental undertakings are accountable to the ministry since their management is directly under the concerned ministry. Now, let's look at some of the advantages of a departmental undertaking. First is easy formation. A departmental undertaking is created by administrative decision of the government, so it involves no legal formalities for its formation, and hence it is very easy to form a departmental undertaking. Second is direct control over parliament or state legislature. A departmental undertaking is directly responsible to the parliament or the state government through its overall head, that is minister concerned. Third, tax on the public is lesser. So earnings of this department are paid into the government treasury, resulting in the lesser tax burden on the public. Next is tool for social change. The economic activity and social justice can be promoted by the government through departmental undertaking. It can be used by the government as a tool for social change. Next, avoid misuse of government treasury. The officers of the departmental undertaking are under the direct administrative control of the ministry. They are guided by the rules and regulations of the ministry, framed with the focus on public welfare. Next is monitored by the rules and regulations of the ministry. As departmental undertaking is subject to the budgeting, accounting and auditing procedure of the government, the risk of misuse of public money is relatively less. Let's look at some of the disadvantages of a departmental undertaking. First is lack of flexibility in operations. A departmental undertaking is an extension of the ministry itself, as discussed previously. So these features fail to provide flexibility, which is very essential for the smooth operation of a business. Second disadvantage is delay in decision making. The employees of or the heads of such departments are not allowed to take independent decisions without the approval of the ministry. This leads to delays where prompt decisions are required. Next limitation is, now these enterprises are unable to take any advantage of business opportunities because the bureaucrats' overcautious and conservative approach does not allow them to take risky ventures. Next limitation is red tapeism. Now there is red tapeism in the day-to-day operations and no action can be taken unless it goes through proper channels of authority. Next, there is a lot of political interference through the ministry. Next disadvantage is that these organizations are usually insensitive to consumer needs and do not provide adequate services. Another form of public sector enterprise is statutory corporation. Now, statutory corporations come into existence by a special act of Parliament. Unlike departmental undertakings, where the power lies with the minister, in statutory corporation, all the powers, functions, rules and regulations governing its employees and its relationship with the government departments are defined in the Act itself. So all do's and don'ts of a statutory corporation are mentioned in the Act. It is a corporate body which is created by the legislature. The good part here is that it is financially independent with a clear control over a specified area or a particular type of commercial activity. It is a corporate person and has the capacity of acting in its own name. So compared to departmental undertakings, statutory corporation has comparatively more operational flexibility like an private enterprise. Let's look at some of the merits of a statutory corporation. First is it's a corporate body. A statutory corporation is an artificial person created by law and is a legal entity. So such corporations are managed by board of directors, which is constituted by the government. So just like any corporate body, a statutory corporation can also enter into contracts and can undertake any kind of business under its own name. Second, owned by state. State provides help to such corporations by subscribing to the capital fully or wholly. Third, own staffing system. So the employees are not government servants even though the government owns and manages a corporation. Employees of various statutory corporations receive balanced or uniform pay and benefits by the government. They are recruited, remunerated and governed as per the rules laid down in the Act. Next is financial independence. Unlike a departmental undertaking, a statutory corporation enjoys financial autonomy. It is not subjected to budget, accounting and auditing controls. So after getting the prior permission from the government, it can even borrow money within and outside the country as well. Now let's look at some of the merits of a statutory corporation. First is initiative and flexibility. The operation and management of a statutory corporation is done independently without any government's interference, with its own initiative and flexibility. Second is administrative autonomy. A public corporation is able to manage its affairs with independence and flexibility. Third is quick decision making. A public corporation is relatively free from red tapeism as there is less file work and less formality to be completed before taking decision. Next advantage is service motive. The activities of the public corporation are discussed in Parliament. This ensures the protection of public interest. Next, efficient staff. The public corporation can have their own rules and regulations regarding remuneration and recruitment of employees. It can provide better facilities and attractive terms of service to secure efficient working from its staff. Next advantage is professional management. The board of directors of statutory corporation consist of business experts and the representatives of various groups such as labor, consumer, nominated by the government. This ensures professional management in a statutory organization. Let's let's look at some of the disadvantages of a statutory corporation. First, autonomy on paper only. So the autonomy and flexibility of a statutory corporation is only for name's sake, as practically the ministers and government officials often interfere with their working. Second, lack of initiative. The public corporations do not have to face any competition and are not guided by profit motive. So the employees generally do not take initiative to increase profit and reduce loss. The losses of the public corporation are made good by the government. Next limitation is rigid structure. The objects and powers of a statutory corporation are defined by the Act, and these can be amended only by amending the statute or the Act. Amending the Act is a very time-consuming and complicated task. Next limitation is clash among divergent interest. Although the government appoints the board of directors and their work is to manage and operate the corporations, now there are many members and it is quite possible that their interest may clash, and because of this reason the smooth functioning of the corporation may be hampered. Next limitation is unfair practices. Now the governing board of a public corporation may indulge in unfair practices. It may charge an unduly high price to cover up their inefficiency. Next form of organization under public sector is a government company. So government company is like a regular company which is registered under the Companies Act 2013, and it is governed by the provisions of the Act. Now these are established for purely business purposes and in true spirit compete with the companies in private sector. According to the Section 2, subsection 45 of the Companies Act 2013, a government company means any company in which not less than 51% of the paid up capital is held by the central government or by any state government, or partly by central government and partly by any of the state governments. And it also includes a company which is a subsidiary of a government company. A government company can be formed either as a public limited company or a private limited company. The government exercises control over the paid up share capital of the company. The shares of the company are purchased in the name of the President of India. Now, since government is the major shareholder and exercises control over the management of these companies, these are known as government companies. Let's look at some of the features of a government company. It is registered under the Companies Act. It has a separate legal entity. That means a government company can sue and be sued and can acquire property in its own name. The annual reports of the government companies are required to be presented in Parliament. The capital is wholly or partially provided by the government. In case of a partially owned company, the capital is provided both by the government and private investors, but in such case, the central or state government must own at least 51% of the shares of the company. Next, management. It is managed by the board of directors. All the board of directors or the majority of the directors are appointed by the government depending upon the extent of private participation. The accounting and auditing practices. So accounting and auditing practices are more like those of private enterprises, and its auditors are chartered accountants appointed by the government. The employees are not civil servants. It regulates the personnel policies according to the Articles of Association.